Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of Mic'd Up. Today we have a loaded show for you guys. We're going to start off by talking about Michigan basketball. They've had some big developments recently regarding their roster retention and the hiring of a new coach for the program. We are also going to be touching on the NBA Summer League. It's obviously been about a week in Vegas. We're going to be talking about the biggest winners and losers so far from this stacked rookie class. We're also going to be talking about Kawhi Leonard and his trade being placed on hold. The NBA is investigating the Clippers for circumventing the salary cap. We'll talk about the implications of that. We'll also talk about Victor Wembanyama taking a $50 million pay cut and why so many NBA superstars are taking such large pay cuts. We're also going to touch on LeBron James at the end of it. He has still not decided on where he's playing basketball next season, so let's jump into it. Alrighty, jumping into topic number 1, Michigan basketball has officially ripped off the interim tag off of Mike Boynton Jr. They have hired him as head coach of the program. Of course, this comes after Dusty May leaving for the NBA and joining the Dallas Mavericks. He's on a 2-year deal, so I'll give the Michigan man. By the way, I'm wearing MSU. I had to contradict the atrocity of a room we got going on in the background over there, but jumping into it, what is your reaction to this hiring, and what do you think about it for the program?
First things first, Michigan's best university on the planet. But besides that, I do like the hire just because at this point in time in college basketball, you're not going to go out and get an amazing coach. You just can't. It's the season's coming up. Our coaches already built their rosters. They're getting a feel for their team for the next season. So for where we're at, I like the hire. Mike Boynton has had coaching experience before, and he's coached an NBA superstar in Cade Cunningham. But obviously he struggled at Oklahoma State. We saw the stats. We've seen the record. And at the University of Michigan, we expect dominance. We expect top-tier performance. I mean, we just came off a national championship, and replacing a guy like Dusty May is not an easy thing to do. It's not. So no matter what, we weren't going to be replacing Dusty May because I think, arguably, besides Dan Hurley, maybe he's the best coach in college basketball last season. So for the point in time where we're at, I do like the hire. It's within the program. The coaches or the players love them. Trey McKinney literally told, I saw an article on this, that Trey McKinney told Michigan he wanted Mike Boynton to stay, and he would stay. And he got tampered, $5 to $6 million is what I saw, and he decided to stay. So I think for where we're at in the time, I think it's a great hire.
Yeah, I agree with you. To talk about his previous coaching experience, he had a 119 and 109 record at Oklahoma State in the 7 years that he was there. That's a 52% win percentage. So that's not great, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, Kansas was running the Big 12. He obviously did not have that conference under control. He never won a Big 12 championship, made one tournament appearance. But like you said, I really like this hire because it's within the program. And I said this on the first episode when we were talking about Dusty May leaving. I really like Michigan going within the program. It's number one because the main thing they were trying to do is retain their roster. So when your main goal is roster retention, you go and get a guy that's within your program that the players are already used to. Probably was a big guy in recruiting. He probably played a big role in recruiting a lot of these guys to the program. And also, they have experience with him. So that's number one. Number two, I like this hire because it's a 2-year deal. And that's important to me because he is shaky when it comes to head coaching experience. He did not have a great run with Oklahoma State. He coached Cade Cunningham. He had some success there, but he did not have a great run. Let's just say that. He was iffy at Oklahoma State. So I like that this is a 2-year deal because to me it seems experimental. It seems like Michigan is not fully set on this guy, so they're going to give him a 2-year deal instead of a 5, a 6, a 7-year million dollar deal, right? So they're not giving him a long-term contract. They're going to keep him at 2 years. If it doesn't go well, they have flexibility. And also, like you said, there's not a lot on the market right now. You're not going to find a big-time Power 4, coach at this point in the offseason. So I don't mind the hire at all. I think it is a win for Michigan. Unfortunately, it's a win. I think, going out and getting a guy that was already within the program, it's a win for Michigan. But that's just me.
Yeah, and obviously at Michigan, he's going to have more NIL and more just recruiting bonuses in general compared to Oklahoma State. I mean, getting like Cade Cunningham speaks volumes to his recruiting. being able to get a guy like Kate Cunningham is ridiculous. But besides the point, one of my favorite points here is his first offer as the Michigan head coach was a former MSU guy, Mateen Cleaves Jr. That was his first offer as Michigan head coach. So I love that. Trying to assert his dominance over MSU. Gotta assert little bro. But I mean, he obviously has a great connection to players. The players seem to love him. I mean, he retained almost the entire roster. He obviously was more of a defensive guy last year on their team. He's not going to have that same advantages with losing guys like Jackson today. But he's going to. What you also said was a 2-year deal. It does give flexibility, and he's on a cheap deal at that. So if he does have a bad season as his first-year head coach at Michigan, we can buy him out. Hopefully we get a new AD coming here soon. I mean, we've seen speculations that AD Ward Manuel is getting fired, and I don't know, you guys will find this out soon. I hate Ward Manuel with a passion. He's like, 2 national championship coaches the year after they win the national
knowing this guy, knowing this guy for as long as I have, he despises Ward Manuel. So I think you will find that out very soon if you haven't already.
Yes, he's the worst AD at a big-time school you will find. Besides that, if he does do good, he's another year deal, and I bet you he would re-sign. So it's a great hire for where we're at right now.
Like you said, I like what you said about, and that was one thing I forgot, is the defense, right? This is another hire. It's like this guy was leading the defense. He was the defensive coordinator on a championship basketball team. So this is not a bad hire by any means. And as much as I despise Michigan, this is a good hire. Like, it is, for what they had on the table, this is absolutely a good hire. They're not going to go out and get anybody else. Let's get a guy within the program. Let's get a guy who already led one of the best defenses in the country, now despite having, a 7-footer and a top NBA player, right? So obviously that helped out his defense a little bit. But like you said, and I know you touched on this before, they have good recruits that probably bolster that defense anyway, right? You mentioned JP Estrella. You mentioned the guy who you can't pronounce his last name from Cincinnati, right? So I think these are good transfers. I think that defense will be good again. I think it's a good hire. As much as I don't like Michigan, as much as it pains me to say, it's a good hire. So something that they did right. Speaking of roster retention, let's talk about LJ Cason. He is the lone Wolverine that has decided to leave the program. He has hit the transfer portal. This was expected. This is a guy that went to FAU because of Dusty May, and then he followed him to Michigan. And now that Dusty May's gone, this was certainly expected. It's not out of the norm. But what is your reaction to LJ Cason leaving, and what kind of impact do you think this will have on the program going forward?
Yeah, I got a couple of points I want to bring up here. So the other day, me and my friends here, me, Bobby, and Aiden Lou were all in my room when LJ Cason hit the portal, and I said I don't understand it, and I had a couple points. Obviously, I knew he went to FAU because of Dusty, then as a freshman, not transferred, but followed Dusty May to Michigan as a recruit, and so obviously he's a Dusty May guy, right? But here's what I don't understand. Last year, before the Duke game, they were doing player interviews with Elliot Cadeau and Yax Vanderborg. Elliot Cadeau basically said they were best friends. Him and LJ seems like a Michigan guy. He said, the first thing he did when he hit the portal, he went onto a Michigan fan page, UofM.coverage, and he said, "I love you guys." It's literally the pinned comment. That's where I don't understand it. If you love this community so much, you've been with Mike Boynton for 2 years, I don't understand it. Now, in terms of next season, it's not a big loss. He's hurt. He's coming off an injury, a big-time injury. So even when he does come back in, I think, January, December, he's going to be redshirted, and he's going to be unlimited playing time. So as of next season, it's not that big of a loss. Now, in terms of the future, it is sort of a bigger loss because I've even seen this a lot, not just from me, even though I might be a little biased. LJ Cason is one of the best backup point guards in the country. We've seen it all last season. He was one of the most reliable guys off the bench for Michigan besides Trey McKinney. And after next year, when Elliot Cadeau leaves, he's looking to be point guard 1. So in terms of this season, it's not a big of a loss, but in the future, I think it could be a major loss, to be honest. And shout out my boy, William Bauman. I know he loves LJ Cason.
Yeah, like you said, I honestly thought this was a bigger loss last year. To be honest, if I'm being completely real, I thought this would have had a bigger impact on the team last year. Now, obviously, it didn't. They ran through the NCAA and won a championship, so it wasn't a big deal then. I don't think it's going to be a big deal now, right? This is a guy coming off of a torn ACL. He tore it in February of this year. So again, he's not going to be able to play for the majority. Well, maybe not the majority, but the first quarter of the season certainly. He's also a guy though, and I know I'm an analytics guy. 8 points per game. He developed a jumper. Like, he was 40% from three, so that's a big deal. And like you said, he's one of the best backup point guards in the country. But what I think this will do is I think it'll give more of a chance for these younger guys to shine. I don't think you're going to have a problem with Elliot Cadeau and Trey McKinney being your backcourt. Like, to me, that's not a problem at all. So, Michigan has had a reputation of landing big-time transfers and getting guys, good recruits, especially recently. They're a top-tier program. I don't expect this to hit them as hard as some people might think it will. And like you said, certainly not out of the norm. Guy loved Dusty May. He followed him around. Dusty May leaves, he leaves, right? And also, when it comes to, I talked about this a couple of times, Trey McKinney and Elliot Cadeau had asserted their commitments almost as soon as Dusty May left. So, to me, those are your two guys from the championship roster already saying they're committed. Where's LJ Cason's commitment? Never came. Obviously, he's leaving. To me, that was the first signal that was like, okay, maybe he does leave. He was the only Wolverine to leave. So if you're only losing LJ Cason, to me, that's a huge success, like a huge success for Michigan. Not losing any of the transfers they got, not losing any of the recruits they got, not losing Cadeau or McKinney. This was a win. This was a very big win for their offseason. This was priority number one, retain the roster. They got that done. Mike Boynton Jr. as the new head coach. You only lose LJ Cason. That's a win. That's just my take on Michigan.
Yeah, and I think Mike Boynton did an amazing job. Dusty May probably was the biggest part of like I said before, I don't want to pronounce his name. I don't want to mess it up. So that Cincinnati transfer, the 7'2" guy, he was our number one portal prospect that we signed, and JP Estrella was second. So getting guys like that who, are projected starters are big. And the reason that I say this is because as a transfer, you're getting recruited by the head coach mainly. And Mike Boynton obviously was in there, part of the recruitment, but not as big as Dusty May. And getting guys to come back, even when you lose your head coach, Dusty May is known as a big man developer. Merez Johnson, Danny Wolf, Lad Golden, Adaymar, Merez Johnson, Yaks. It speaks for itself. So being able to retain the two big guys you got in the portal was amazing. Marcus Moeller was a 7'3" Spain guy. We retained him. Quinn Costello, he was the second to last person. He was the guy before LJ Cason to announce that he was staying. So he was our last guy. And then also to replace LJ Cason, we got Brandon McCoy in the backcourt. Brandon McCoy is a 5-star guard. He literally announced his commitment with the Fab Five. That's a Michigan man, if you ask me. So I think Mike Boynton's done an amazing job. And like I said, LJ Cason, it's going to be a loss, but it's a manageable loss.
Right. If you lose a guy like Brandon McCoy or Lincoln Cosby or Trey McKinney, that's a bad loss. But LJ Cason being the only guy to walk away from Michigan after Dusty May unexpectedly leaving like that, it was unexpected, let's be honest. This is a guy who came off the national championship and said, I am not looking at any other jobs currently. And then he takes the job with the Mavericks. So it's an unexpected loss to go from such a sudden change to then keeping your entire roster and not barely changing at all. And hiring within the program, I do consider that a win for Michigan. Unfortunately, it's a win for Michigan. It pains me to say it, but it is.
Yeah, and this is my last part. That's all I think I want to say. And this is a shot at Ward Manuel. Everyone said after the national championship, he said they came to an agreement on an extension, but no one ever said he signed it. It was there for months or weeks at least that he said he was going to sign an extension, but we never got an announcement. We never got terms of agreement. And then all of a sudden we see him take a job for the Mavericks. Ward, what are you doing, man? You let Jim Harbaugh walk after the national championship. Now you're letting another coach in two different programs. You've had two different national championships and you let two different coaches walk. Ward Manuel needs to be gone as soon as possible. He's the worst AD you could ever have for a national powerhouse. That's my piece on it.
Yeah, that's the Ward Manuel. That's the Ward Manuel hate that you're going to see on this podcast. Welcome to the Mic'd Up podcast with Brady Cook and Aiden Liu. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the Summer League. How about the Summer League so far? We're about a week into it. We're going to be talking about the biggest winners and losers of the Summer League so far. I know it's early, but these rookies have had some time. Most of the top picks have made their debuts. So I'll start with you. Who do you think so far is the biggest winner of the Summer League?
I know I got made fun of for this. I said hot take about Caleb Wilson. I didn't even mean to say hot take. But going into the draft, Caleb Wilson was like one of my favorite rookies outside the Michigan boys. So Caleb Wilson going out in the summer league, and he looked ridiculously good. He broke a rookie record for summer league debut points scored. The jump shot looked amazing, and we didn't see a lot of jump shots from Caleb Wilson in college. And he said in an interview that his job in college wasn't to shoot, but we just saw him put on a crazy three point outing. He had a very clutch three, a fadeaway three to put the game within 2 points. I mean, the game was already all over basically, but I mean, it's a crazy shot. So I love Caleb Wilson in the Bulls. That looks really good. Jax Lenneborg looks like a dog. I mean, when his matchup with Merez Johnson, they both had 20 points. I mean, Jax took the win, obviously, but the Warriors, the Summer League team, looks really good. As a Pistons fan, it pains me to say this, Becca Corrier, I mean, I like the pick, and I do think he's going to pan out to be a good player, especially for what we've seen. But I do think he hasn't performed at what we want to see, especially as the Pistons Summer League's been pretty bad. Darren Peterson's been playing pretty crappy, but, I mean, he's one of a kind. And the one thing I hate about people, because you see it all the time, people overreact to Summer League all the time. Look at Wemby. Wemby's first performance in Summer League was horrid. It was terrible. So I think overreacting to Summer League stats and performances is something you shouldn't do. But, I mean, you do get a good grasp of where players are at.
Yeah, again, so as we talk about this, like, take this with a grain of salt. This is the Summer League. We're talking about like 3 games so far for most of these guys. Yeah. 2-3 games. Obviously, this is not telling of how they're gonna play out and how their careers are gonna go. However, we can say that there has been some winners and some losers of this Summer League and some picks that have looked extremely good. Like you said, Caleb Wilson's my number one. And really, honestly, it's just the entire top 4. The entire top of this class has looked exactly as advertised. They have played extremely well. Let's talk about Caleb Wilson. 27 a game. 27 a game. That is elite scoring, right? Not only that, he's 48% from 3. He had 7 threes in his first game. Do you know how many threes he had at UNC through 24 games? He had 7. He equaled the amount in his entire college career in 1 Summer League game. So that's something that the Bulls, who shot 35% from 3 last year, middle of the pack shooting team, they did not expect to get this from Caleb Wilson. Like, they were not picking Caleb Wilson with the idea that he was going to be a jump shooter. That was not the reason they picked him. So that's an added benefit to a guy who was already elite, in my opinion. 3 blocks per game. He has been absolutely incredible protecting the rim. He's been an incredible defensive asset. This Chicago team, to me, like I said, this is a team in an awkward position right now. They're talking, they're kind of flirting with the play-in tournament. And the lottery. So to go out and get a guy like this, major win for Chicago. Number 2 is AJ DeBanza. Obviously the number 1 pick. He's looked as good as projected. He's been extremely physical. I think he's one of the most physically ready NBA players in this draft. He's averaging 25 a game. He's securing 7 rebounds per game. He's 12 for 14 at the line. He's living at the free throw line right now, which to me, I know how much hate free throw merchants get in today's game, but that really is the direction of the league right now. You get a guy who can go to the free throw line, that's big for your team, but it also signals to me that he's just being physical. He's driving to the rim. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's being that physical 6'9" scoring wing that he was meant to be. 2.5 steals per game, a block and a half a game, so he's obviously doing it on the defensive end. The Wizards have come out and said that they have shut him down for the rest of the Summer League, so we will not see him the rest of the way. But in the 2 games that we did, I absolutely consider his Summer League a win. And what else did we expect? This is AJ DeBanza. We knew he would be good. But number 3 for me, Malik Thomas. Okay,
oh my gosh,
let's talk about Malik Thomas. Let's talk about Malik Thomas. How did this guy fall to the 34th pick in the draft? That's the number 1 question I have. So many teams slept on this guy. He's averaging 28 a game so far through 3 Summer League performances. He had 35 the other night. 4.3 assists compared to just 1.7 turnovers. That's pretty good. Like, that's a pretty good assist to turnover ratio.
Especially from a forward.
50% from the field. Yeah, exactly. Especially, this is not a guy who's meant to be a guard. So I think Cleveland got an absolute steal. absolute steal. Like this to me, this made no sense how he fell this far down. And there's a loser in my list that I will say that infuriates me even more, that he fell below a certain guy who went at 33. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I know you wanted to touch on Malik Thomas, so I'll give you the spotlight here.
This draft was an absolute loss for Sacramento. Darius Acuff is playing, I mean, like we said, take it with a grain of salt. Darius Acuff is playing horrible efficiency. I mean, we see grasps of greatness and grasps of elite playmaking and getting down getting down the lane. But you took Alex Caravan over Malik Thomas, and you could have paired up the Calipari duo with Acuff and Malik Thomas. Caravan is obviously a bigger forward than Malik Thomas, but Malik Thomas is margins better than Alex Caravan. Alex Caravan is a 4-year senior. Malik Thomas was a freshman, and obviously we're seeing what he's doing. I knew this was going to be a big or good pick. The Kings absolutely lost this draft. That's the biggest. I'm stuttering because I'm so frustrated with this Kings draft. They're in a terrible spot already going into it. They're one of the worst teams in the NBA. You got Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. The more I say it, the less I like it. The Kings are not a good team. They're an aging team. I mean, Domantas Sabonis is good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they have some good guys, but they missed with this draft.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said DeMar. They released him. DeMar is not even on the. They have released DeMar DeRozan. So
I forgot about that. Yeah,
they didn't like it either, right? They didn't even like it either. So the Kings are just a franchise. It's just like I said with Memphis, right? Put them in the Tyron Stone sweepstakes and get them out of here, okay? It's just over for them. They're one of the worst franchises in the league. They're in rebuild. So I'm not even regarding them. Malik Thomas, though, has been elite. He is. I think he's probably the biggest winner so far of the draft because of how far he went and how long people slept on this guy. That is crazy how much people slept on this guy. He's been an elite scorer. And another winner for me is Braden Burries. To me, Braden Burries has played at an excellent level. This is a guy I think that also fell too far. I think he's better than Keaton Wagler, especially after the performance we've seen from him.
I've been saying
I'm not a
Keaton Wagler fan.
Yeah, to be honest, I think Braden Burries has outperformed expectations from where he fell at number 10. The Bucks, I think, got a steal with him. 22 a game. He's shooting 50% from 3. He's got 1 turnover in the entire summer league. So, to me, that's huge. He looks calm. He looks composed. And he looks ready, and this is what the Bucks need. This is a team right now that's probably a little uncertain with what they're going to do with Tyler Hero. I don't know how long-term this Tyler Hero relationship is. And then obviously you just got rid of Giannis, so you're kind of heading towards a little bit of a rebuild. And I think Braden Burries is an even bigger win when we talk about my first loss of the summer league, which is Nate Ament. I think Nate Ament has, and to me, I've never really been high on Nate Ament. The people calling him Baby Giannis, I call them crazy. I don't think this guy is even comparable. He's obviously, I know he had a bounce back game. I know he played better against Charlotte the other night. He had 23 points on 7 of 13 shooting and 2 steals. I get it. He had a good game. However, the first 3 games, he had 21 points throughout the first 3. So he had 21 points combined through 3 games. He was too passive. He took 3 shots in one of the games. He took 7 in the other 2. So, to me, that's too passive for a guy who's supposed to come in and be an immediate impact in Milwaukee. So that's a loss for me. Jumping back to win, I like what you said about Yaxel Lenneborg. One stat I wanted to point out. His box plus minus. To me, this is an important stat. It takes all of the box score statistics and puts them in to a net rating. So how is your guy performing when he's on the court? Is he making your team better? 15.9 box plus minus. He has a 15.9 box plus. The second guy, Darren Peterson, has a 7.3. And I know I just said take Summer League with a grain of salt. But if you look at box plus minus and how we measure it, 8 to 10 is an MVP level season. You get anything above 10, you are talking unbelievable. Michael Jordan, LeBron-esque box plus minus. You don't see that. So for this guy to have 15.9 box plus minus, and why is that so important to me? Look who picked him. Golden State picked him. They needed a guy who could come in and win now and make an immediate impact. This is an aging core. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, if they somehow add LeBron James, this is a core that is pushing 40. This is not a team that's going to be around for a while. So, you need a guy who can come in and make an immediate impact. That's why I loved the Axel Lenneborg pick. He's averaging 16 a game. He's 13 to 21 from three so far, which was a kind of a surprise to me. He's shooting lights out right now from deep. And like I said, with that box plus minus, 15.9 box plus minus is unreal. That's another win for me. But now we're going to get into the losers. And I know I already mentioned Nate Ament. So do you have any losers that stand out for you so far?
I have three names that come to mind right off the bat. Nate Ament, Darius Acuff, and Keaton Wagler. To be honest, Wagler was such an overhyped prospect for me. The only game that really stood out to me in college was that Purdue game, and I must say that was an insane game. Going into Mackey, breaking a record for most points, but as a freshman, was ridiculous. That was a crazy game. But he was also shooting lights out from three, and everyone catches hot streaks. He couldn't miss. Darius Acuff, like I said before, he's terrible efficiency. And I think I said in episode 1 of this podcast, Nate Ament was a terrible pick in my eyes. I just don't think he's ready. And right now the Bucks, they just traded away Giannis. I think they want to be. They're trying to win right now, but they're not. They should be a project team. And if you make Nate Ament into a project and you turn him, developing him into a even like a low all-star kind of guy, then it's a win. But right now, I just don't see it. I don't see the vision. I think he's too weak for his size, and he's a tough shot maker. But I mean, tough shots come with a grain of salt because you're gonna miss them. You're gonna miss them too, and so he's not playing with good efficiency. And then Acuff, like I said, Acuff he's not showing up to the hype.
Yeah, I agree with all three of those picks. I actually have them on my board. Darius Acuff for sure is one of the bigger losers to me. And you know what? It's kind of disappointing because I thought he would be one of the bigger winners. I thought he should have went higher than 7. So I had this guy above Keaton Wagler, which I'll touch on in a minute, but I thought he was going to be a top 5 pick. So to me, like you said, with the inefficiency, like he struggled shooting the ball. He shot 6 for 20 in his first game. He shot 4 of 14 in his second game. He shot 9 of 18 in the third game. That's not bad. You'll take that for sure. 50% is 100% great. But I do have some concerns when it comes to his efficiency. And what is so disappointing to me is because this guy's already a shaky defender. To me, he's already he's a liability on defense. He was supposed to make up for that with his explosive offense. I just don't think we've gotten that so far. I don't think we've gotten the Darius Acuff we saw at Arkansas yet. So to me, his defense is very below average, and he's playing very inefficient. So to me, that's a loss for Sacramento, and this is a team that just keeps taking L's. And then Keaton Wagler, to me, he struggled, and I was never high on Keaton Wagler. He very good story going from not a very highly touted recruit to a top 5 pick in the NBA. That's great, but you got to prove it. He has not played up to a top 5 pick, in my opinion. He's shooting below 40%, so he's also inefficient. He goes along with Acuff. But to me, I'm concerned about his athleticism. To me, he's not jumping out of the gym. He's not a very athletic guard. He's also not very muscular. To me, he has a very slim frame. To me, that's a problem. And it's a problem because they really needed him to be an off-ball guard. That's why I originally didn't mind the pick for the Clippers, because they need him to be an off-ball guard when you have Darius Garland. But to me, he's not athletic enough, in my opinion. He's not muscular enough, and again, he's shooting inefficiently. So I think Keaton Wagler has been kind of a loss for the Clippers. And then my final loss to me, and it's unfortunate because it's a second-round pick, and I think it's Isaiah Evans out of Duke. He has been one of the biggest losses of this entire summer league. And I hate to hate on a second-round pick because it's rare that you find elite talent in the second round. But what's so frustrating is this guy went 33, and who went 34? Malik Thomas. So to me, it just puts an even bigger spotlight on the fact that this was a bad pick for Minnesota. He's 4 of 30 from three-point range right now. He's 4 of 30 from three-point range. He's a shot chucker, in my opinion. He's inefficient, so he's not shooting it well. He looks uncoordinated. And again, the guy went behind it, right? The next pick after him, Malik Thomas, is having such an elite run right now in the Summer League. To me, it just highlights how big of a loss this was. I thought Minnesota could have easily took Malik Thomas. But, you live and you learn. Take it with a grain of salt. This is just the first week of the Summer League. There's still a little bit of action to go. And obviously these guys, like you said, with Wembanyama, take it with a grain of salt. Wemby had a horrible first game, and look how he's turned out. He's a top 3 player in the league now. So it's, it is what it is, but we do have to have some reactions to it, and I think there has been some clear winners and clear losers out of this draft. The top of the class has looked as good as advertised. They have looked great. Darren Peterson, obviously, shut down. AJ DeBanza shut down. I'm sure they're going to shut down Caleb Wilson soon. So I think those are that's my take on the Summer League so far. I don't know if you have any extra comments.
Good here.
Alrighty, we are going to move on to a little bit more of an interesting subject. Obviously, we touched on how Kawhi Leonard was traded to the Toronto Raptors, heading back to Toronto for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and some draft capital. A good trade for Toronto, we said. However, this trade's been put on hold. This is, to me, a big deal, and kind of a little bit unexpected. So the Clippers, it all started back in September of last year. So the NBA launched an investigation into the Clippers and Steve Ballmer, their owner, for circumventing the salary cap. It was alleged that Kawhi Leonard was taking a $28 million endorsement payment from a company called Aspiration. I don't know much about Aspiration. I think it's an environmentalist group. They're bankrupt now, so that's something to tell you. But he was taking a $28 million endorsement deal, a no-show agreement, from this Aspiration company in order for the Clippers to kind of avoid going over the salary cap. They were circumventing the salary cap. So they were paying Kawhi Leonard almost $30 million extra to try and avoid any penalties that they get, in addition to his NBA salary. So basically hiding money and paying Kawhi extra money to what he's getting from the NBA and from the Clippers themselves. This is obviously a big deal because we know how much the NBA has been trying to crack down on salary cap restrictions and teams building dynasties and paying their stars an absurd amount of money. We know how much they've been trying to crack down. So to me, this is a big deal because if you're Toronto, where do you go from here? The Toronto was told by the league that if they were to let this trade go through, and they agreed on it, they would also agree to face any punishments that come out of this investigation. So they would be taking on anything that the NBA finds, any wrongdoing. If they do find any wrongdoing from these allegations, the Toronto Raptors would then be inheriting it instead of the Clippers. And Toronto was like, hold on a minute. We just traded Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick and a lot of draft capital for what we thought we were going to be getting back in Kawhi Leonard, and now you're telling me that we could be punished for something that the Clippers did. Now, so this is smart for Toronto. Hold off on the trade. Pause the trade, freeze it real quick until the NBA finishes its investigation. However, if you're the Raptors, do you still do this deal knowing, like, to me, it's a question of whether, like, do you want this deal done? This is obviously something for Toronto that I think they should go through with. Like, I think they want Kawhi Leonard very much. But you could be facing, like, large fines. You could be losing draft picks. Like, there could be some draft, punishment. And not only that, Kawhi Leonard could be punished himself for this. Like, he could be, facing suspensions. So if Kawhi Leonard is facing suspensions and missing time, is he really worth all those assets that you gave up? So Toronto is obviously going to wait until this investigation finishes. The league is going to continue investigating. To me, they've got to get it done at some point. Like, you have to get through this investigation. This began at before last season. You have to get through it. If it starts affecting free agency and trades in the offseason, like, I think at some point it has to be done. So I guess, what is your general reaction? I know I just talked a lot. What is your general reaction to this? Where do you think Toronto goes forward with this? Do you think it's worth taking on Kawhi Leonard facing potential suspensions?
I think you gotta look at the pros and cons here. Obviously, the pros are you're getting Kawhi Leonard, a superstar. Obviously an aging superstar, but a guy that can win right now. You look at the cons. You could take in fines, you could take in suspensions, all that. So once the investigation is done and they see what the punishment will be, I think they go from there. Obviously, you would take a certain amount of punishments for a guy like Kawhi Leonard, but it depends on how big the punishments are. So, I mean, right now it's hard to even say what you would want to do because we don't know the punishments, we don't know the investigation, we don't even know if there is a punishment going to happen. So for right now, I just think you can't really move forward until the investigation's over. And like you said, the investigation's got to get done. Toronto could be going after another guy in the free agency who could. I mean, obviously, no one's going to take Kawhi's spot. and be as valuable, but you got to try and replace him somehow if the punishments are that bad.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Like I just said, like to me, when it starts affecting trades and it starts affecting the way teams go about their offseason, like you have to get this investigation done. They've known about this. I was like, okay, you know, maybe they'll have it done during the season, but like to me, it's got to get done at some point. The Clippers, I don't know much about whether the Clippers did this or not. It's, you know, it's something where like Steve Ballmer is one of the wealthiest owners in the league. So to me, it's like no team. Why would any team want to take the fall for a guy like that? Like, you know, why would any team want to take the financial punishment for, you know, a guy who is as wealthy as Steve Ballmer? Kawhi, like it's something that the Clippers are just a kind of a mess right now. Like this investigation has to get done at some point. And like you said for Toronto, like if I'm Toronto, like this, I want this done. I want this deal done. So you either like, again, like you said, we got to wait until we see, you know, what punishments are incurred, if any, at all. But Toronto wants to get this done. And, like, the Clippers are still okay with this deal. Both teams agreed to it. All of a sudden, it comes out that this trade's been put on a hold. Toronto wants this done, obviously, because they get Kawhi Leonard back. And you know, he's playing some of the best basketball of his career. He's an elite scorer. You get even better defensively to a team that was already a top 5 defensive unit in the regular season last year. And you pair him with Scotty Barnes, a young two-way, I think, budding star, in my opinion. He had a career year last year. So you want to get this deal done if you're Toronto. But you also have to be careful, right? You don't want to give up, you know, Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and all this draft capital when you could probably, you know, if it's not worth it if Kawhi Leonard's suspended for an entire season, or, you know, you lose out on several draft picks. Like you don't want to take that risk, but you also kind of do, because you just got to test the waters. Where is this investigation going to go? We'll keep following it, you know, as we go along. Hopefully it's done soon, you know, for both sides. We'll see where it goes. All right, jumping into our next topic, another interesting topic. We found out that Victor Wembanyama is taking a $51 million pay cut in a recent extension he signed with the San Antonio Spurs. He took 5 years, $52 million instead of 5 years, $303 million. So a pretty significant pay cut for Victor Wembanyama, and we're seeing this now a lot. We obviously saw in 2024, Jalen Brunson took a $113 million pay cut to give the Knicks more financial flexibility. They won a championship. Now we see Wembanyama do it, coming off of a finals loss. So let me get into a little bit of a backstory here. So for those who don't know, in 2023, the NBA owners came to an agreement on a new collective bargaining agreement, a CBA, and it basically established new salary cap rules. Before these rules went into effect in 2023, 2024, teams could go over the salary cap to a certain amount, and then if they did that, they would go over the tax threshold and they'd be paying luxury tax. They'd basically be paying, like the owners would be paying to keep expensive rosters and keep paying their stars and keep their core teams together. However, in this new CBA, the NBA introduced the second apron, which is obviously shaping the league more than I expected it to. It is completely reshaping how teams build their rosters and how stars go about contract negotiations. This was kind of motivated, though, by, I believe it was honestly motivated by Golden State, if anybody. The league wanted to do something about teams forming dynasties and having such long-term runs, because Golden State had, as recent as 2022, the year before this went into effect, their payroll was $184 million. It was $71 million over the salary cap. So basically, Joe Lacob, the owner, was just like, all right, I'm willing to pay luxury tax if we can keep this winning team together. So he would go and he would pay a bunch of money to retain his roster. And basically, that's what Golden State did back when in the dynasty years with Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. Like, that would not be possible. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. So the second apron was introduced. What does the second apron do? So any team over the second apron, these are the rules. They cannot use their mid-level exception. They cannot combine salaries in a trade, which means they can't put multiple players together and combine their salaries to go out and get one expensive player. So like you can't combine multiple role players to go out and get a star. That's a big deal. They can't take back more salary in a trade than they pushed out. So you can't trade out, let's say you trade out $50 million in salary, you can't take anything above $50 million back. You can't send out cash in trades, which is obviously kind of a big deal in some trades. You can't send out any cash considerations or anything. And the biggest one to me is their first-round pick. A team who is over the second apron, their first-round pick 7 years in the future is frozen, which means they can't use it in a trade. They can't do anything with it. And if they stay over the second apron for multiple years in a row, I think it's 3 out of 5 years. I'm not sure exactly on that, but that pick automatically goes to the bottom of the first round. So you could have an average team who could probably get 11 through 18 overall pick. They could be pushed to the 30th pick no matter how they do during the regular season. So that's obviously a big deal. And another kind of tiny rule is you can't sign bought out players that were making more than the mid-level exception. So you couldn't add, a contender couldn't go out and add Russell Westbrook at the end of the season like the Clippers did a couple years ago. Because if he's making a salary above the mid-level exception, you cannot go out and buy out players. So that's a big deal. That's a lot of financial restrictions. Teams are basically strapped down. You go over the second apron, you're basically strapped down. And the impact we're seeing on this is, okay, let's talk about Boston in 2024. That's the biggest example to me. Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis were both traded out of Boston right after they won the championship. And then they also let Al Horford walk in free agency. They broke up their championship core, what seemed like for no reason, because this was a team that looked like they could make multiple runs at a championship. However, they were going to go above the second apron, and they didn't want to do that. And I think we just saw the same thing with Jalen Brown being traded. I know it didn't make a lot of sense, and Boston has not come out and said why they traded Jalen Brown. But to me, this was a financial decision. They had an extension looming with Jalen Brown. They would be paying him probably $70 million annually to keep him, along with Jason Tatum, who's also probably going to be getting paid $70 million annually. So you're going to go over the second apron. They probably didn't want to do that. They didn't want to dip into that, and they just traded Jalen Brown and got rid of that, contract negotiation, mess. They didn't want to do that. They also, another example of this, I think, was Minnesota a couple years ago when they traded Karl Anthony Towns. This was a team coming off of a Western Conference Finals trip, a team that looked poised to make a couple of runs at a championship, and all of a sudden they trade Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. Obviously, did well for Karl Anthony Towns, and the Timberwolves also went back to the Western Conference Finals a year later. So wasn't too big of a deal, but they traded Cat because of financial, they didn't want to go into the second apron, and they wanted more financial flexibility. Now what we're seeing is superstars taking pay cuts. So now we're finally full circle. This is what we're getting to right here. Wemby takes a $50 million pay cut. Brunson took a $100 million pay cut a couple years ago. We saw Reeves. Reeves was $5 million. Now it's basically nothing, but he did take a little bit of a pay cut. He changed his contract extension from $185 to $180 million. So here's the biggest thing to me is it seems like the responsibility of long-term winning and roster retention has been shifted away from owners and GMs, and it's been put on the players. And I think that's unfair because if you want to win in this NBA and you are a star player with a good team around you, you are going to have to start taking significant pay cuts to stay under this second apron. It's impossible to build teams for long-term success. OKC, I'm sure, is going to be hit with it, right? I'm sure they're going to be. Boston would look like they were going to make a couple of runs. They had to break up because of it. So in order to maintain your team and maintain a good competitive team, if you are a star player, you are going to have to start taking pay cuts. And the biggest thing is we finally saw somebody win with it. Jalen Brunson took a $100 million pay cut, and he just won a championship. To me, that's a trend-setting, that's huge. Because now other guys around the league, like Wemby, who just lost to Jalen Brunson in the finals, is okay, it's a winning move. I want to win a championship. I want my team I want a team that's built around me. I'm going to take a pay cut to give my team financial flexibility to go out and make moves. It's as simple as that. And that is why we are seeing so many superstars take pay cuts. The responsibility of winning and long-term success has been shifted away from owners and GMs, whose job it is to build teams and build rosters. It's now been shifted to the players. So I know I just talked for 5 minutes, but what do you have to say about this? What do you think about, players having to take pay cuts in order to keep winning teams winning?
Obviously, it sucks for the players First off and foremost, no player wants to lose money. Nobody in the planet Earth wants to lose money
Right.
for no reason. I mean, but there is a reason, but no one wants to lose money because to win. Here's what I do like, and this might just be some baseball guy. I hate the MLB's way with money. You see the same teams every year. The Dodgers are always a championship
Yankees.
team. Yes, Yankees, New York Mets, teams that can afford those players. Where teams like Oakland, there's a reason why Oakland's going to Las Vegas. They can't keep up just because of money. They have to let people walk.
They're a smaller market, right?
Yes, and Detroit, I know Detroit has some more money than other teams, but our owners are so damn cheap. Sorry about that. But this is why I do like teams. I do like the bringing in salary and making it more of like an actual resource. Because the MLB sucks for that reason. I hate it. I genuinely do. Tigers can't afford to keep Tariq Skubal and then keep a guy like Kevin McConnell when he has resigns. And I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much about baseball. It's the NBA segment. But that's my point. You need to have a structure, and that's why I do like the second apron. It gives teams shorter windows to win, and you got to make win-now moves. So it puts more pressure on the GM to make a win-now move. And you do see guys like Wemby taking a pay cut, Brunson, and those are significant pay cuts. $50 million is obviously a lot of money. It is. But for some of those guys like Brunson, he can afford that. Wemby, they can afford that. They also get endorsements because they're bigger guys. So, yeah, they can afford to take pay cuts. I mean, Austin Reeves is getting free handouts with their bills at golf courses, too. So, I generally do like the second apron, and I like that it's making players also less selfish and see who wants to win and who's more about money. Draymond Green just took a pay cut to try and get LeBron. So you see guys who are selfish, and you guys see who are more arrogant and just want the money for themselves.
Yeah. One thing about Wemby, and I know you just talked about he can afford it. Absolutely, this is a guy that's going to go from making $17 million next year to $50 million annually. So, it's a pay cut in the sense that he took less money than he could have. But honestly, to me, I just look at it as more of less of a pay raise. He's not taking a pay cut. He's making $33 million more than he would have. So, to me, it's just it's less of a pay raise for him. That's beside the point. The one thing I do enjoy, and I love your baseball analogy, to me it just makes the league more competitive. Because
I agree, 100%.
It makes you think more. It makes these owners in these teams have to think more. Okay, we have assembled an incredible roster. Where are we going to go forward now with this? Because now we have to worry about 1 to 2 years down the line this being a problem financially. And this is why we are seeing such parity in the NBA. 8 champions in 8 years. That would not have happened 10, 15 years ago. This is new. And this is why we are seeing a new team win every single year. Some could see that as good. Some see it as bad. I see it as good. I like going into a season not knowing who's going to win a championship. I like seeing players be less, like you said, more unselfish and more selfless. So to me, it just makes it more interesting. It makes it harder for teams. This is what this CBA does and the second apron does. It just makes it harder for good teams to remain good for long periods of time. You're not going to see, a Golden State Warrior team run the league for 5 to 10 years. You're not going to see a San Antonio Spurs team, go to several finals. You're not going to see what happened with Miami for several years and the Lakers and the Celtics and go on and on. You're not going to see dynasties a lot more. And I see that as a good thing. I'm obviously a Golden State guy, so I didn't mind when we were winning all those years, but it's just, to me, it just adds more parity to the league. And I think that's good. I think anytime you have an unpredictable league, that's makes just as much better for the fan experience, right? So, to me, it's definitely interesting. It's really interesting to see all these stars take these big time pay cuts. We obviously know LeBron James is going to take a big pay cut this year. He's making over $50 million, and now he said he's willing to play for the vet minimum. So that's a massive pay cut because he wants to win a championship. And to win a championship in this league, in today's NBA, you are going to have to make sacrifices. You are going to have to take less money. If you want to build a sustainable culture, a sustainable winning program, you have to take less money. The responsibility has officially been shifted, and we're not going to see teams. It makes no sense for Boston to break up their championship core. But when they were $188 million in payroll and way above the second apron, it does make sense. Obviously, you're going to let Porzingis, Holiday walk and leave, and you're going to trade him away, and you're going to let Horford go. You know, the Nuggets had to do the same thing. Caldwell Pope, Bruce Brown, gone after they just won a championship. Then, you know, the Knicks didn't re-sign Mitchell Robinson this year. Like, that's it. You know, they didn't want to go over the second apron. And the Timberwolves, like I already touched on. So this is why these teams are making these questionable moves, in my opinion, and these are why these superstars are taking less money. And I think it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, and my biggest thing is it levels out the playing field. There's a reason why Moneyball. I keep talking about baseball, but that's my biggest thing with MLB is the whole salary thing. Moneyball is one of the greatest movies in my opinion, just because it puts into clearest perspective to where people that like casuals, like I wouldn't say I'm a casual, but like to the money side of professional sports, I'm 100% a casual. And it makes me see it more clearly. You have to break out like Giambi I forgot his name, the outfielder. He goes to New York Yankees or the Red Sox in the movie. It's because they can't afford it, and it's not fair. So what this does for the NBA is it levels out the playing field, and it makes it more competitive and more fun, to be honest. I like seeing new teams win every year because you don't see it in other sports. New England had their run because they can afford it. I know football is a different salary kind of thing, but like basketball is turning into, and the NBA is turning into the only professional sports league where you're seeing new champions every year.
And you know, like you look at the salary cap last year, $154.6 million. The tax line was $187 million. The first apron was $195, and the second apron was $207 million. Like, I don't think there's any reason like why teams should be spending over $207 million. Like, that's an absurd amount. Like, you were trying to build the super team, and that just can't happen anymore. Like, it won't. We are not going to see teams like. To me, it really brings up an interesting point. Is now how much are we going to value winning rings? Like, in my opinion, I think rings in like when we're talking about the greatest players of all time, everybody loves to bring up ring. It's ring culture. Everybody loves to bring out how many championships a guy won. Now, how are we going to look at guys in 10 to 15 years from now when we look at this era of the NBA? I think the value and the weight of a championship ring in the 2020s is much more than it has been in a very long time. Like, it is extremely hard to win 2 or 3 rings. And I'm just saying it begs the question, are rings going to be worth more now than they were 20 years ago when MJ was winning 6, when Bill Russell won 11? Like, in my opinion, is 2 to 3 rings in this era, is that like, that's extremely impressive in my opinion because of the way the rules are and the way the NBA has cracked down on dynasties and the era of parity that we're in. Like you said, leveling out the playing field. You can't keep good teams good forever. And like, you cannot just simply buy rings. Like, you have to, there's got to be some strategy. There's got to be some sacrifices from your best players. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Wemby. That's exactly what we saw with Brunson. And that's why the New York Knicks are champions right now, because they were able to go out and spend more money because Jalen Brunson took a $113 million pay cut and he saved them almost $40 million annually. That is why we saw that. So that is our take on the CBA and these pay cuts. I think it's definitely an interesting direction that we're going in. I think it's relatively positive. Anytime you get a more competitive league, it's more fun to watch. So to me, that's how I see it.
Last thing for me is I do remember his name. Johnny Damon went to the Red Sox in Moneyball. That's it. That's all I want to say.
Alrighty, speaking of Jalen Brunson, I know we had a little bit of debate on him. Let's talk about his ESPY that he won last night. He won the NBA's Best Player Award at the 2026 ESPYs. Of course, the New York Knicks won a slew of awards. They won Best Team, and OG Anunoby won Best Play, and Brunson also won Best Championship Performance. But I think it honestly begs the question. The nominees, SGA, Jokic, and Victor Wembanyama. Those were the other guys that were nominated. Jalen Brunson takes it home. Now, I don't know how much stock I'm going to put into like the ESPY awards and whether that determines who's the best NBA player or not over like an MVP award, you know. But honestly, it does beg the question, and I've seen a little bit of debate and deliberation on this topic. Where do you think Jalen Brunson currently ranks among the NBA's best right now?
For me personally, I think Brunson ranks about 6. I have 5 players above him. I have Wemby, Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, and Luka Doncic. And then there's Brunson falls in. I think what Brunson did in the playoffs was really impressive. But I do think those 5 are better. I think they're more impactful for their team. Or I don't know, I wouldn't say that. Brunson's very impactful for the Knicks. But
I was going to say, man, he's a Finals MVP, man. I will say that is the safe answer in my opinion. Like that's the answer that I think you're going to get like a lot of agreement on. I'm going to put him at 5. Now, I'm going to put him at 5, and it's arguably 4 in my opinion. But I have SGA at number 1. I've got Jokic at 2. I think SGA's beat him out just because of the back-to-back MVPs. I think he's the best player in the world right now. Obviously, it's 1A, 1B, though. You're not going to go wrong with either. Number 3, I think, is Wemby after the playoff run he just had. I think he's obviously transcending the game. He's obviously an incredible basketball player. He's a generational talent. We know how good Wembanyama is, and he just led a young Spurs team to the finals at 22 years old. So he's going to be a problem, right? No doubt about that. Now, number 4 is Luka, in my opinion, and I'm very close to putting Brunson above Luka. And I know that sounds crazy, but let's be honest, like Jalen Brunson, to me, winning a championship has so much weight. And like I just talked about it with ring culture. In the way that the NBA is going in the direction of winning championships and how hard it's going to be with this level of parity in this era that we're in right now, Jalen Brunson has to be a top 5 player in the league. He's got to be a top 5 player in the world. Like, it's just, to me, I put so much, like, when I watch a guy who is 6'2", maybe less, maybe 6'1", who is leading his team, like, let's be honest, that team was great, like, around him, but he led that team down the stretch. He had 45 points in Game 5. He had an excellent performance in Game 4. I know that OG Anunoby gets a lot of the credit because of the tip-in he had, but let's give Jalen Brunson some props. I think he had 36 in Game 4, and he really was the igniter behind that comeback. Deserved Finals MVP, one of the better ones in recent years. Let's be real. I think this guy's a top 5 player in the world, and he's arguably number 4. So I don't again, I don't put much stock into the ESPYs and deciding who is the best player in the world because I don't think he is the best player in the world. I think SGA is. Like, I think the back-to-back MVP is. I think Nikola Jokic, and Wemby are both better than him. But I think a little bit of recency bias probably plays into the ESPYs a little bit. He's from, plays in New York, plays in big market, but I do think he is the top 5 player in the world. So I'm not going to disagree with it. I just wanted to get into a little bit of debate on that because I've seen some rankings put him, like where you put him at 6. I've seen some people put him at 8. So to be honest, I think he's top 5. I think he's just above Anthony Edwards. To me, it's just like Ant hasn't won. And I get how much of a talent that Anthony Edwards is, but to me, he just hasn't won. He hasn't proven it to me. Although I don't think he has the team around him. I think the Minnesota front office is I agree. He doesn't have the team around him. Minnesota's front office right now, they're in a weird spot. Traded Julius Randle, got back LaMelo Ball, traded Naz Reid. I think they had a net loss in my opinion. I don't mind the LaMelo and Ant pairing, but I just don't know how strong they are in the front court at all. So that's just my take. I think Jalen Brunson's number 5, but I can totally see 6. I can see why you would put Anthony Edwards. I just think Brunson with the win, it might be a little bit of recency bias. Finals MVP, the impact he had on the Knicks, the way he played in the finals was, in my opinion, unreal. So I don't mind the ESPYs pick. Again, I take that with a grain of salt, though.
Yeah, Brunson's. I think there's an argument for Brunson being top 5. Obviously, we just saw what he did in the finals. And let me say this: the Knicks have an incredible team around him. Cat, Mitchell Robinson in the finals. I mean, obviously on the Celtics now. OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo. Is he on the Knicks still?
No, he was on Timberwolves. No, he's on Timberwolves. Yeah. He just tore his Achilles in the playoffs.
Yeah, I had to rethink that for a minute, but I mean, the reason I put Ant above him is because I think Ant's just a better player. He's going to the playoffs still, and I know he's not winning much. He did have to go against the Spurs, who Spurs took out OKC. So don't get me wrong, Spurs are an amazing team, and they were honestly my pick to win the finals. I didn't think the Knicks were going to pull it off. The Knicks played amazing, but Ant-Man's a different kind of talent. He's like a more all-around or he's more all around in, I don't know how to explain this, man, but Ant's a better shooter. We see the amount of threes he makes this season, which is ridiculous. And he's more explosive down low, but Brunson's obviously more efficient, in my opinion, and especially better with the ball as a true point guard. So there's a debate there. I mean, they play the one's a 1, one's a 2, in position-wise. So there's definitely a debate to go there, but I do prefer Ant-Man, but I also might be a little bit of bias. He's my favorite player in the NBA right now, so keep that in mind.
I'm just saying, like, let's give Jalen Brunson like his respect. Like, I think 8 is too low. Like, that to me, and I honestly think 7 is too low. Like, he needs his respect. Give this guy his flowers. He just led the Knicks to their first championship in 53 years. He was by far the best player on that team. Like, I know he had a great supporting cast, but that's Jalen Brunson's team. And I love the story of Becky Hammon saying you cannot win. Like, as a small guy myself, you cannot win with a small guy being your guy on a championship team. You cannot win a ring. And he went out and he did it. And he did it in style. He put up an incredible performance in the finals. So it's just me. I like the ESPYs rewarding Jalen Brunson for that. I think this guy deserves his respect. And I think the Knicks, I just talked about dynasties not happening, but I think, like, and I say this every year, and I said this with OKC, but I think the Knicks have a good chance at repeating. Alrighty, we are going to touch on LeBron James. Now, we feel a little bit obligated to because he's LeBron James. We still don't know. Like, we cannot tell you where he's playing basketball at. Now, we can tell you that a couple of teams have emerged as the favorites to land LeBron. The Cavs and the Heat are still in there. But the Philadelphia 76ers have also emerged as favorites to land LeBron James. And, of course, the Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves also stick around and are, still in the mix for LeBron James and in the sweepstakes. Now, it's hard to give you any information because, again, he's been kind of dormant. He has not made many public appearances. Now, he actually is at Fanatics Fest right now, I think doing a live podcast with Tyrese Halliburton. It is a LeBron-type thing to just drop the news on his own podcast. To be honest, I also think it's LeBron James' thing to wait this out until the World Cup's over so that his decision is the biggest storyline in sports. So that's just me. But LeBron James is still awaiting his decision. We've seen a couple of reports that, like, to me, this is the weirdest thing in the world, but we've seen a couple of reports about who he's hanging out with. I knew he was hanging out with Draymond Green this past week. They were golfing together. The fact that I'm even saying this as a headline is crazy to me. Listen, like, to Golden State, I don't know. Like, I think Golden State only really has a good chance because of the relationship that Steph Curry and Draymond Green have with LeBron James and the accessibility they have with him. But if he wants to go win, like, I would love LeBron, and I think I'm a Warriors fan, so obviously I'm going to say we can contend with LeBron James. To me, though, if he wants to go out and win, Philly is by far the number one. Like, he goes to Philly. If he wants to win a championship, he goes to Philly. That team would be immediate contenders. Like, you're pairing Maxey, Brown, LeBron, Edgecombe, and Embiid together. Like, to me, that's just like that's a really good starting five. Cleveland, I think, is another good fit. Bill Simmons said the other day, though, that Cleveland's like anything with Cleveland is kind of done and kind of faded out of the picture. I don't know how much I believe that. To me, it's just like, does LeBron want a storybook ending? Like, what does that look like for him? If he does, I don't think he goes to Philadelphia because, to me, that doesn't have any significance in his career. If he wants a storybook ending, he goes to the Cavs, farewell tour, coming back home. Or I think Golden State wouldn't be bad either. I know I'm advocating for Golden State a lot here, but I don't think Golden State would be a bad storybook ending. He's obviously got the rivalry, and basketball fans would love Steph Curry and LeBron James to share the basketball court together. We saw what they did down in Paris in the Olympics. So that's all I've got for LeBron James. I know it's disappointing, but we are disappointed because, July 16th, and free agency started 16 days ago, and we still don't know where LeBron James will end up. I don't know if you have any comments, but that's about it for me.
Not really too many comments. I just want to say one thing. I want to see Dominican LeBron play with LeBron. That's all I want to see, man. Yeah, pair up the Axel.
Did you see that clip?
LeBron.
There was a clip on social media. It came out last night. There was a bunch of Warriors fans gathered outside, and Steve Kerr was driving by, and he was, he rolled down his window, and they said, "Hey, Steve Kerr, we got to get LeBron, man." He said, "Oh, we got him." Like, to me, it's like, Hold on a minute. I think he's trolling. However,
Yeah.
because he said put that on Twitter, like literally the next sentence. Like nobody says that if they're not trolling. But hey, man, it's just something. As a Warriors fan, I'm trying to grasp onto anything that I can get when it comes to LeBron James. Golfing with Draymond Green is obviously a big deal. The fact that that was reported as world news by Shams Charania, whatever. But I don't know. Hopefully we get a decision here soon. Like I said, it's LeBron James. Like, there's no bigger sports storyline right now than the World Cup. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if he waited until after the World Cup to announce where he's playing basketball. Because do you remember the last time he had a big free agency decision? He went on live television and announced it and absolutely terrorized Cavaliers fans in front of millions of people on national television. So that was the last time he decided something like this. To me, like, it's no secret that he waits. It's no secret that he probably wants to be the biggest name, biggest headline in sports. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. And I want to give my shout out to Aiden Liu, man. He's an amazing host, doing a great job. And props to him. Thank you for having me out again. And yeah, excited to talk about NFL next.
Of course, yeah, we do have an NFL podcast coming up in episode 4, a little teaser. Could be coming very soon, maybe right after this one, but I won't say too much on that. Maybe a special guest. I won't say too much on that. Thank you guys for joining us for this 3rd edition of Mic'd Up. I thought today was a great show, a lot of speculation. Hopefully LeBron decides so we can actually give you some definitive reporting instead of saying where he's playing golf at. But I am very excited to see where this goes. Victor Wembanyama taking a pay cut's interesting to me, and maybe the Clippers did a no-no with the salary cap. We'll see what happens with that. But thank you for joining us. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next edition of Mic'd Up.